So I want to point out that I think as a producer and somebody who works in the kind of bureaucratic side of the healthcare industry, maybe we were particularly susceptible to the show about internal politics and bureaucracy.
Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm the consequences of these characters' actions.
And this week, we revisit the galaxy far, far away with the Disney Plus TV series Andor. Before we secretly fund a terrorist organization, remember you can help us on Mortified the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, signing up for our monthly newsletter through the link in our show notes, or following us on Twitter and Tumblr at MortifiedPod. Leyla.
Aaron?
Is Star Wars good?
So, by the law of just like sheer quantity, right? You can't hit it out of the park every time, right? The more Star Wars things you make, the more statistically you're gonna hit some L's. Thankfully for us, this was W after W after W for 12 fucking episodes. This series, goddamn rules.
Yeah, right. Like, here's the thing. Ever since about 2019, Star Wars has kind of really struggled to find its place in the new world. This was like, especially with, I want to say, like, Book of Boba Fett and the new Obi-Wan show. Like, Mandalorian did pretty well, but like those two in particular, I was a little bit disappointed by. They never quite really nailed Star Wars, but like Andor has been the first one that's really like, oh, this is great. This is great television. And I'm so excited that you watched it, and I'm glad because I know it was a huge time, it was a huge demand of your time, but like I am glad that you made it all the way through because I love this show.
Yeah, I mean, like, in defense of the Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, like, Star Wars is so big and there's so much going on in it, like, between the movies, 3 trilogies of movies plus spin-offs. You have, right, like Rogue One and like the Solo.
Mm-hmm.
And also there's a bunch of series, the Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, Andor, and then there's shorts, there's games, there's Lego Star Wars, there's animated series. Like, at this point, so many people have had their paws on Star Wars and have put their fingerprints on Star Wars that there's like, you could get 10 different readings of the franchise from 10 different types of fans, and you would get a description of 10 different Star Wars, right? So I want to point out that I think as a producer and somebody who works in the kind of bureaucratic side of the healthcare industry, maybe we were particularly susceptible to the show about internal politics and bureaucracy.
Yeah. The amount I identify with Cyril Karn is like bad because he sucks really bad.
Devastating.
And like there's a bit where like this show came out just as I was starting my new job as a bureaucrat, and like there's a bit where his mom was talking about how like you have to sit up straight, otherwise nobody will respect you at your job. And like I had to give a meeting, I'd like lead a couple of meetings my first couple months of the job, and like I was just thinking about that, just like sit up straight, please don't stutter, please be cool. And I was just like, I could just, whenever I felt like I bombed a meeting, I could just hear Edie's voice ringing in the back of my head, and I was just like, fuck, god damn it. But yeah, no, I really, really like this show, and I think we're going to spend, the majority of our runtime just talking about what happens in it with our new show format. So let's talk about Andor.
So, a little bit of context. This is the prequel series to Rogue One. I personally have never seen it. I don't know if I'm going to watch it because I heard it's sad and I'm sad, and that's a bad combo. Mm-hmm. And for the purpose of this exercise, which, like, I find it very important to judge spin-offs on, like, can they stand alone if in a huge franchise you don't have all of the pieces of context? I'm pretending Rogue One does not exist. Mm-hmm. And for people not familiar with Star Wars at all, the only, like, lingo you really need to know here is that the Empire is bad and the Rebel Alliance is good. Anyway, welcome to Andor. This show follows a man named Cassian Andor, a rogue that has a reputation for thieving, borrowing, and scamming his way through life in the industrial town of Ferrix. While off in the corporate-owned city of Morlana 1 looking for his sister, Andor annoys 2 corporate guards who decide to mug him at gunpoint. And in the altercation, surprise, surprise, Chekhov's gun goes off and the men die. Now, Aaron, if you mug someone at gunpoint, do you not know there is a risk of the gun maybe going off?
Here's the thing about these Primor security guards is that they're are pretty immediately shown to be a bunch of doofuses. So, like, yeah, it's bad. Right? Andor's not out here looking for a fight. They're just, like, mad that he gets better service at the Star Wars strip club, which, the fact that there is even, like, a brothel in Star Wars, like, it shows the degree to which Tony Gilroy was given, like, a lot of leash in this production. They get in this fight, they try to mug Andor. We get our first indication that Cassian is, like, not a person to be fucked with because he's outnumbered. They have a gun to his head, and he's able to, defeat one. The gun goes off, accidentally kills the other. And then the first guy is just like, hey, wait a second. It's actually worse for me that this guy died because now you have to shoot me too, don't you? And Cassian's like, yeah, I do actually. Goodbye.
And he he's like, well, we'll go in together. We'll split the blame. It was an accident. He fell. It was a real, that number from Chicago. We both reach for the gun by, Cassian's like, no, and shoots him in the head. It's great. Unfortunately for Cassian, the overzealous Deputy Inspector Cyril Karn, Aaron's kin, defies the direct...
Even if it's true, don't say that.
Well, he defies the direct orders of his supervisor and mounts a full investigation of these 2 deaths of his coworkers. After tracking Cassian's borrowed ship to Ferrix and receiving information that the murderer was asking around about some lady from the abandoned mining planet of Kenari, Karn puts out a call for tips. Specifically, he's like, I want information on a human male with dark features born on Kenari. Back on Ferrix, where this starts to set off some alarm bells, we get some more insight into Cassian's scammer lifestyle and his deeply patient friend, Brasso. Brasso, my king. Brasso is patient, he is large, and he is kind. He's doing his best. And his friend sucks.
Yeah, he does have a friend. You mean Cassian, or?
Yeah, Cassian, absolutely.
Yeah, Cassian is kind of a dirtbag. Yeah, listen, not everybody on Ferrix is a good person, but a lot of them are trying their best, and the best part of the world building on Ferrix is just, like, how clearly you can see that community is very tight-knit and everybody kind of trusts each other. It's a really fun piece of world building, right? Seeing the big wall of all the workers' gloves. And, like, there's no, like, there's no lockers, right? You can just tell that nobody's going to steal because, like, there's no point. Everybody knows everything about everybody else. It's really good and really effective. Everything in Andor is just really impressive.
Absolutely, yeah. Glovewell fucks. Even just visually, it fucks. So Brasso agrees to lie to give Cassian an alibi while he lays low. Then Cassian goes to see his adoptive mother, Marva, and their home droid, Bimo. Marva, played by the lady who plays Aunt Petunia in Harry Potter.
Yeah, I know. Aunt Petunia, very, very funny. She does a great job. She's a very effective, old mom.
Crushes it. One of my favorite performances is absolutely Marva. So she's like, hey, dipshit, what'd you do? Actually, I don't want to know. Who have you told that you were born on Kenari? And Cassian's like, who have you told that I was born on Kenari? And she goes, family. And they get into an argument because both of them have justified reasons as to, the people that they told about Cassian's birthplace of Kenari.
Yeah.
But you know, at the same time, it does set off some alarms for him, where he's like, "Fuck, like who knows? Am I gonna get turned in?"
That sequence is very fun because he at first gets like his mom is like, "I'm worried about all the women that you've hooked up with, you fucking slut," and then he's like, "Mom, you always talk to all these randos." Like, which he like drops a name of somebody that's not related to them, but she's like, "Oh, they're family. That doesn't count," and it's just like a very fun like family argument.
Yeah, with very high stakes. But as a result of this mishap, Cassian starts to desperately try to find a way to get some credits being Star Wars currency, and to get off planet. He decides to contact his ex-girlfriend, Bix. Bix, the lead love interest in Morbius.
Wild. Just wild.
And also, but I know her as Anathema Device from Good Omens, which she also did a great job in. Morbius, a film I have seen and immediately wiped from my mind. I read that and was like, couldn't have, if you put a gun to my head, I would not have been able to tell you she was in Morbius.
Yeah.
But so he goes to Bix, and he's like, hey, I have this like rare stolen piece of Imperial equipment. Can you contact your shady buyer, your fence that you contact for all your stolen Imperial equipment? And Bix is like, fuck no, but then she ends up doing it because she finds out the part is very expensive, and the buyer, for some reason, has always wanted to meet Cassian anyway. Unfortunately, Bix's current boyfriend, Tim, finds all of these meetings with Cassian fishy in both the "my girlfriend is cheating on me" and in the "this known charlatan is causing her grief" kind of way. And so he calls Karn's tip line. The next day, as Cassian meets with Bix's mysterious buyer, they are ambushed by Pre-Mor forces led by Karn. Talk about sad speeches.
It's rough.
It's so painful to watch. In a show full of, like, legitimately great hero speeches, like, I usually think they're kind of cheesy, but there's a couple of, like, we'll talk about the Prison Break speech was great, and Marva's Hollow speech was really great. In a show full of great speeches, this was, like, hard to watch.
Yeah,
it's a sad boy.
Karn is such an interesting character because of the way that, like, you can see that he just so desperately wants to be a leader and a hero, and he just like shits the bed at every turn. And that's why ultimately I sympathize so much with him, even though he's a creep and a fascist. Like, I just, there's so much of like my own insecurity that I see in that character, and I'm just like, ugh.
He takes the creep turn so fast. It's unhinged. We'll get to it. So, because of the ambush, no sale was made. The whole thing turns into a complete shit show. People die, Pre-Mor employees get hurt, and Tim straight up dies. But just as with the Pre-Mor guards, Tim did not have to rush in to save Bix here. Bix was fine. They would have let her go.
Yeah, Tim's a fucking idiot.
Tim rushes in, and Tim gets shot. And he dies. So once again, consequences of his own action. Not to victim blame a murder victim, but consequences of his own actions here a little bit.
Listen, fuck cops, but also fuck Tim. So
Tim sucks. Tim started out so strong, but ended up sucking so hard.
Yeah.
The buyer, Luthen, recruits Andor to help the rebellion as a bit of a mercenary, to moonlight as a little bit of some hired muscle. The mission, though, is to lift a whole shit ton of money from an Imperial garrison on the planet Aldhani. So here's where we meet our ragtag band of characters: Vel, Nemik, Skeen, Tamarin, and Cinta. We'll talk about all of them briefly. The only ones you need to remember, though, are Vel and Cinta. And I guess Nemik, if you, like, feel like remembering him. I do, because I love him. But the boys all get fridged. Finally, equality.
There we go. That's feminism.
The boys die feminism. So Vel is the, like, you know, she's the leader. Talk about someone with something to prove, right? Like, she's also very self-conscious of her leadership. What do you think about her? At least on this first impression. We learn a lot about Vel.
There's a lot. Yeah, Vel gets a lot of character development later on, but, like, yeah, I mean, like, I think the opening of the Aldhani arc is a very interesting thing because you get Cassian thrown into this wild situation with a bunch of randos, and you just kind of see how he handles himself among all these people. And, like, we see Vel, and we see how, like, she is, like, so mad that this has just been thrown, this responsibility of having to deal with this extra man. has just kind of popped up out of nowhere, and how like she is frustrated and like thought that Luthen was going to be able to let her lead the mission on her own, but now like Cassian's here and she's feeling undermined by that. But also just like there's so much going on, and she's trying so hard to hold it together. I really like sympathize with her and this whole situation. And I think she does a really good job, like considering the incredibly high stakes and high pressure of the heist that she, is in charge of. Like, I think she does a remarkable job, even though, at the very end she freezes up a little bit. Like she manages to pull off, the biggest heist that has ever happened to the Empire. So like really, really good. I like Vel a lot.
Yeah, I tend to relate more to Cinta, who's very like mission first, rebellion first, like the cause first, to the point where Vel, like, there's some like heartbreaking one-liners. There's just some real devastating shit in this show. And there's a point at which Vel hasn't seen Cinta in a while. They're together. They're lesbians, sir. Talk about creative control. We get canonical lesbians that are not like a background kiss. And Vel is just standing in the background while Cinta's looking out the window, like, on target, on mission, talking about the job. And Vel's just like, good to see you too. And I'm like, oof.
The struggle comes first. We take what's left.
Right. I really quickly want to dip to Skeen and Tamarin before we talk about Nemec. Skeen is a scumbag and he sucks and he dies. After the mission, when they have the money, he's like, hey, Cassian, me and you 50-50 and we fly off, and 40 mil credits is like enough to make me forget about you. Let's fuck off. And Cassian shoots him in the forehead, as he should have. And then Tamarin used to be a stormtrooper. He dies during the battle at Aldhani. And then there's Sweetie Nemec, my angel Nemec.
Yeah, Nemec's great. I mean, like, you need to have like a naive kid that like truly believes in the cause that gets got, right, to motivate a character, right? And it's very funny to me that Nemec is like the theory kid, right? That he's all about writing the political consciousness, theory of the rebellion. He wills Andor his manifesto, right? But like, I actually asked my agent if she could get me a job writing that manifesto. I don't think that's gonna happen, but like, I like Nemec a lot. I think he's a very fun character, and he is the archetype of the naive believer. But like he is clearly in love with Cassian also, which is very fun, and rip to a real one.
Yeah, and he also, like, we gotta get faked out, because you meet Nemec and you're like, there's no way this kid does not die. Mm-hmm. There's no way he makes it through this, just the way stories happen, you know?
Right.
But he survives the whole heist, the whole shootout, and he gets crushed by a rack of credits.
Yeah.
And it is sad, but he, like, man, what a sequence when they're flying through the eye. He, like, pulls it together to use his navigator to get Cassian out of the eye, while the other two are, like, too focused on saving him. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible sequence. I loved it very, very much. But yeah, so despite some close calls, the gang pulls off the heist on Aldhani. The only remaining survivor separates. So Cinta, still back on Aldhani. She's, like, wrapping up there. Vel left with Nemec's body and enough loot to fund rebel activity for like a hot minute. I think it's like 80 million credits total that they took. Mm-hmm. And Cassian went off to get his mother and take her to a deserved beach retirement. And that is Andor's incredibly happy ending, and there's no more show. Everyone's cool and chill, and Cassian's on a beach.
Yep.
Except not.
Except, nope, there's 6 more episodes.
So the botched fetch operation on Ferrix, so that's Karn's mission, lands Karn in a lot of hot water with his supervisors and attracts the attention of Nazi FBI, which is the Imperial Security Bureau, or ISB. Weirdly, though, the operation to stop 2 guys with pistols somehow snowballs into what sounds like an armed and dangerous targeted conspiracy to fuck with the Empire. Like, legitimately, Karn was just going to stop, like, one shitty thief who happened to be with another shitty thief, and they had 2 pistols between them. But because of the, like, criminal incompetency of his leadership, like, there were explosions, Grand Theft Auto, people die, like, horrifying.
If this happened in like your local city, like some fool cop tried to take on somebody and like blew up a city block and got 4 of his colleagues killed, like it would be like an incredible disaster.
Which is exactly what this was.
Yeah.
And so Karn loses his job and has to go back to live with his mother, Edie. Talk about an incredible performance. She's awful, but so delicious to watch.
Right.
And he attracts the attention of our favorite Imperial girl boss, Dedra Miro.
How'd you feel about Dedra?
I mean, I love to watch her.
Yeah. I mean, she's great up until the point where she starts psychically torturing people, and then it's like, oh yeah, she's a bad guy. I forgot about that.
Well, it's such like a fun, incisive critique of like girl bossery, right? I think the thing I like about Dedra as a character is she's so dedicated to the cause, right? Where she's just like, she wants to do a good job, but and she'll like break rules to do it and like piss people off and you know, like really like she's driven to excel. But when you back up for like a second, she doesn't have any real motivation to do so. Like there's no promotion on the line for her, no monetary gain. She's not being blackmailed. No one's gonna like take her to be Palpatine. You know, like it is just all of this energy directed at nothing, right? At just like sheer zeal for the system she's a part of.
Well, also, I think it's climbing the ladder, right? Like, as soon as she gets in that fight with Blevin, right? He's just like, you've been here, what, a year? Like, you should probably study the ladder before you start climbing it. And then even when she does, like, a really good job in her presentation with Partagas, he's just like, hey, good job, watch your back. Like, if my boss told me that, like, I would be looking for a new job.
Oh yeah, I'd have an anxiety attack and leave 100%. But at the same time, like, there's no one, the path up the ladder for her is not spelled out for the audience, so it's not like
right,
like a goal for her, right? It's not like a clear motivator. It's just kind of this like nebulous. But again, like, she's climbing towards what? Like, she's never going to be emperor. You know what I mean? So I think that makes her really interesting. But so girl boss Dedra, all of her, just like Karn's boss, her boss is like, this is nothing. This is random. Sure, they succeeded on Aldani. Let's crush them. It'll be over. Like, it doesn't matter. Dedra's like, no. These are targeted, systematic thefts. This is a pattern. They're gathering weapons. And basically gets laughed out of the room. But she's gonna get to the bottom of this, right? Like we said, she's a girl boss. She's not gonna stop. At this point, we also get more information about Bix's mysterious buyer/recruiter, because the biggest chunk on Luthen's long-ass resume is actually owning an art gallery. Him and his assistant, Clea, another girl boss queen, I love Clea, they run their secret Rebel Alliance radio service out of the back room of their art gallery, but in the front, they welcome one of their favorite clients, Senator Mon Mothma. So here we get Luthen, we get Clea, we get Mon. Let's talk. Clea, talk about a bitch that has the fucking global picture in her sights.
Right. She's the one who's like, we should kill Andor, because Cassian at the end of the Aldani heist is like, I can't take this anymore. I'm taking my cut and I'm leaving. He's not going to continue working with the rebellion.
Coward King.
Yeah. As such, Clea is the one who pushes Luthen to set out a hit on him, right? Like, she's like, okay, well, he's met you, he knows you, we should kill him. Right, and eventually, right, like, Luthen is still, like, very shaky about it. He doesn't really want to kill Cassian because he likes him. But Clea is all no nonsense, just like, hey, this is what we need to do to, we've got to make sure you're protected. Like, every time there's an opportunity for Luthen to, like, meet someone in person, she's always like, no, let me do it. Let me find a proxy. You need to get to safety, because she, in the end is like very interested in protecting the rebellion and knows that Luthen is the Axis, as the Empire calls it.
Yeah, so he's the buyer, but girl boss Dedra is like, we're gonna call him Axis, because we don't know who he is, but he's the Axis of all these, like, interactions. Clea, girl boss queen. Luthen's an interesting character, because I can't tell if he actually wants a rebellion, or if he wants the picture of a rebellion, because he posits himself as this, like, kind of Machiavellian, like, a time-calculating, leader of this, like, disorganized rebellion, and he's willing to, like, kill and sacrifice and burn his own resources to, like, for the greater mission. But the thing that makes the rebellion, or at least like the thing that makes Cassian successful, and like makes you want to follow him, and what makes like the prison break so compelling to watch, is like this camaraderie. Same thing with Ferrex, right? This like camaraderie and sense of community, and Luthen is just not fostering that at all.
Right.
So it makes his shit a little bit interesting to watch, because you're like, what are you driving at? What is your vision post Empire? And you can't really tell. And then Mon Mothma, what a queen. I'm so glad she's here. She's just like, she's just a fun neo-lib trying to set up her wildlife foundations and in too deep with the Rebel Alliance, and nobody told her what the consequences of her fucking actions would be.
Yeah. It's very funny, right? The A More Civilized Age podcast with, Austin Walker and all those folks. Like, you should, if you like Andor, you should go and listen to that podcast, because they do a episode by episode breakdown, and it's very good. But they make the comparison of like Mon Mothma to Hillary Clinton, right, for a bit, where she's just like,
she even has the Clinton hairstyle.
Right, exactly. But like, also, it's very much like if that was all a front, and Hillary Clinton was very much like sending dollars to Hezbollah, right? Like, just a completely. And the funniest thing is that she doesn't know. She's just like, when Aldhani happens, she like goes to Luthen and she's like, "Did you know this was gonna happen?" And Luthen's like, "Hey, girl." They're doing genocide. You know this. That's what the Gorman shit is all about, is preventing genocide. And like she even, like, her terrible husband has like dinners with the people who are starving, the like people that she's trying to protect. Like, Mon Mothma is, one of my favorite characters in Andor, because we get to see the politics of Star Wars and how messy and weird they are.
Yeah, I mean, like, you called out one of my favorite scenes, which is like Mon coming home. And her husband's she's just like, "What's happening?" He's prepping the dining room, and he's like, "Well, we're having that meeting." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And he shows her the guest list, and she's like, "Bro."
Hey, Henry Kissinger's on this list. Did you know that? And he's like, "Yeah, we play pool together on Sundays." Like, it's just, so good. When she's just like, "Please let me sit on the other end of the table. If you sit me next to these war criminals, we're gonna have a bad time." And he's just like, "Ugh, must everything be boring and sad?" It's just like, shut up, Perrin, you suck so bad.
Yeah, Perrin sucks ass, but again, sucks ass in a way that's deliciously fun to watch. Mm-hmm. Because he's just like a spoiled little rich boy, and you find out that just like due to their cultural custom, him and Mon got married when they were 15, and so they've been together forever, and they hate each other.
Yeah, exactly. No, and then they have this daughter who is a trad cath, which like is awful because he enables her.
Because, like, truly, it's like if Chelsea Clinton suddenly started running a trad wife lifestyle blog. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what this feels like.
Yes, no, it's wild.
It's sure something. So, back on Ferrex, Cassian finds that he is being kind of blamed for a bunch of the explosions and stuff of his hometown, and he needs to get his ass out of Dodge, because, as Brasso puts it, literally anybody will turn you in. People do not like you right now. So he goes to see his mom, Marva, and he's like, "Hey, me and you, we're off to Rio. We're going to live our life on the beach. It's going to be great." And his mom is like, "Okay, I need to think about this." He goes to Bix. Bix is like, "Tim's dead. You need to leave." And Cassian's like, "Will do, don't worry." So when Cassian returns to Marva to be like, "Hey, we're going to Rio. Let's go, me and you." She says, "No, I am too old. I am too tired. The Imperials are here. I'm a rebel now. I'm going out fighting. Fuck these guys." Cassian's like, "Absolutely not." And she's like, "You can't make me go." And he's like, "Okay, but I have to." And she goes, "I know." And so he has to go without her. He goes off. He says he's going to come back. And he goes and he has a beach retirement of his own. And that's Andor.
Mm-hmm. Except it's not.
Yeah, except he
No.
gets arrested for doing nothing. Literally nothing.
So-
he was just walking to the store.
The arrest sequence is one of my favorite bits, and like I said in the comments to your notes, because like you haven't seen Rogue One, so you've never seen what the K2 droid looks like. But in Rogue One, K2SO is a Imperial droid that's been reprogrammed to like help the rebellion, and he's like Cassian Andor's best friend. So I love this because like a lot of the stuff that I don't like about recent Star Wars is that it's all very callbacky. So like at first you think this is a callback. It's gonna be like, oh okay, shit, this is K2SO. This is how Cassian mates K2SO when he's being harassed by this policeman on the beach, and it is not. This droid, like this stormtrooper comes up and he's like harassing Andor, and then he tells the droid like, hey, I need some help with this guy. Hang on to him while I go chase these other perps. And like the droid just like turns to Andor and he's like, he said hang, and Cassian's like, hey, no, he meant like watch. And then the droid picks him up by the throat and slams him against the wall, and it's just like horrible because he's like choking him to death. And it's just like a complete subversion of like the fun, like, oh, this is where he's gonna get rescued by K2SO. No, it's not. This is where he gets sent to prison for 6 years.
This is where he gets sent to prison for going to 7-Eleven to pick up fucking gummy worms and condoms.
Pizza
Like
is the Star Wars thing he's picking up.
the greeny green ones. So yeah, and the reason he goes to prison for for all his little petty crimes, normally he'd get a sentence of 6 months. But because of the new public order resentencing directive, which is the fun new law they passed after Aldani to put pressure on the people to stop harboring rebels, it is now 6 years. And this is also a retroactive law, which means anybody already in prison had their sentences increased.
Yep.
Sucks.
It sucks. It's so bad. It's miserable. Like this is the Star Wars we see in episode 4 we know is bad because they have a gun that blows up planets, and like that's interesting and fun, but it's a little corny. It's a little bit like, okay, that's supervillain shit. This is very much more like gritty and realistic, and like this is what empires actually do, which is force you into a work camp and disguise it as public safety, and then retroactively double your sentences. And like this next 3 bits of episode, the Narkina 5, Jesus, okay, right, so. This whole segment on Narkina 5, I think, is like my favorite like bit of storytelling in Star Wars, just because it is like so impressively done. It doesn't like have a whole lot of Star Warsy shit, but like just the character beats and moments and the ways it's employed are just truly impressive from a technical and storytelling standpoint. That like it's my favorite shit.
Oh, absolutely. And the prison itself is really cool too, because it's not like your traditional work camp where it's not like dirty and like I'm thinking opening to Les Mis, right? Like chains,
right?
Like
nobody's singing "Look down, look down." You'll always be a slave, but that is ultimately the end goal.
Right. This place is like sterile, and the first hint you get that like something's afoot, pardon the pun, are the guards like funky shoes. Mm-hmm. And basically you find out that any section of the floor can like fry you to death at any moment. That's what the guards do. They use the floors to literally fry the inmates. And so he goes to this work camp. They're building something. Who knows? It's like the factory in The Simpsons, or not The Simpsons, sorry. It's the factory in Weird, the Al Yankovic story, where like every time he asks what are we building, everyone just like laughs in his face and no one gives him an answer. Oh, no. They don't know what they're building. There's just like 5 I think there's like 7 floors, 7 rooms, 7 tables, seven men to each table, so it's like 500 men approximately a floor. And he ends up in the care of Kino Loy, and finds out that the most productive table gets flavor to their food, and the least productive table gets punished by like shock through their feet.
Mm-hmm. Do you know who plays Kino Loy? Can you tell?
Is it? I didn't look him up, but he did look familiar. Who is it?
Andy Serkis. He's
There's
great.
a lot of really great.
Yeah, no, incredible talent.
Andy Serkis in this role, yeah, he's so good. So back on Coruscant, which is the like capital city where Mom Mothma is, in the beautiful ivory geometric walls, they continue to close in on our Senator Mon Mothma, who's having more and more issues moving all her money around and is frankly upset at the amount of hubbub Aldhani has caused. Luthen tells her to suck it the fuck up, and that this is the cost of revolution. He's not wrong, but he's a dick. So
That's Luthen, baby.
This is also when we see Val return. But instead of the rugged mountain sheep herder we met her as, whoa, she's Mon's cousin. She's a spoiled little rich girl.
Right.
Surprise! She comes to visit, spoil her niece, and then whenever Perrin is like, oh, you're of spinster age, why don't you settle down and find a husband? She makes veiled jokes about her lesbianism. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's great.
And then, back with the ISB, as Dedra convinces that her colleagues that the chickens are organizing, which is a reference for the 10 people that listen to us who've seen Chicken Run. She catches on to the existence of Cassian's apparent accomplice and Bix's buyer, who this is where she names him Axis, and she rightfully thinks that this mysterious figure is at the center of all this coordinated rebel activity, and now she wants to find him and Cassian Andor. Meanwhile, Luthen, who around this time realizes that Cassian knows who he is and could be his operation's weakest link, this is where he decides to put the hit on him. Cassian, who is still in prison and slowly trying to organize a breakout, because of course he is. Actually, talking about favorite sequences, that long drag of Cassian going to prison, of like him resisting at every turn, because Cassian's been to prison before, and he doesn't want to go back, obviously. Who would want to go back to Imperial prison? Just like the heartbreak on his face and that reluctance and all that, like, he doesn't expound on his trauma, but like you can tell it's there, right? Like he looks haunted by the concept of going back to prison. He's trying to organize a break from prison, obviously. And this is helped by a catastrophe on a different work floor where one of the inmates was released and then immediately reassigned to a different floor. The inmates on that floor found out, realized that there was no fucking getting out of this prison, rioted, and the Imperial soldiers fried all of them. All 490, day shift and night shift.
It's 100, but it is still bad.
Oh, sure, 100, well, listen,
not
still mass murder.
Listen, it's fine. No, the ways in which like the cruelty of the Imperial prison is described and like continues to like get worse and worse the more you learn about Narkina is just like really it's really something to be applauded as a storytelling mechanism, because it's like, okay, not only are they like forced against each other with this weird system of tables, not only are they competing to have taste added to their food, but now also, it's made clear that they are not being played fairly with like they whenever their like little clock runs down, the fact of the matter is they're being just sent back to do more forced labor, and like it's and the fact that they're just like they panicked and they're like, okay, we can't let that get out because they're gonna be really upset if that happens, and they kill 100 dudes to make sure that secret doesn't get out, and it's just like the Narkina sequence is incredible.
Yeah. So with that, with that happening, Cassian finally gets through to Kino. Do you want to talk about how this fucking prison break goes?
Yeah. I mean, the prison break on Narkina 5 is like truly just like an incredible piece of like storytelling and stakes setting. It is tense all the way through. It is it starts with like, Kino and Cassian realizing they have to fight back, otherwise, they're gonna die here, and just escalates from there. Where like they make this plan. Cassian goes to cut the water in the bathroom so that way it'll spill out onto the electrified floor. So that way when they spark it shuts down all of the electricity, so they can't get them anymore. And then once they do that, when they're bringing a new man down, they attack the elevator and like climb their way up through until they can actually get on top of the platform, and they start to take out the guards, and they slowly but surely take over the entire prison because the guards are just not staffed enough to handle 5,000 men. And, you know, they take over the prison. Kino gives this incredible speech where he's just encouraging everybody to, you know, help their friends and comrades, get everybody out. You know, they have this like really tense like fight. They are able to make their way all the way to the top of the prison. And they make it. They get to the top of this prison. People are jumping off because basically the prison is kind of like submerged underwater into like this weird dam, and it's all hydroelectrically powered. So the only way they can get out is by jumping off of the top and into the ocean that surrounds Narkina. And it's revealed at the very end that Kino cannot swim. And Cassian's like, wait, what? And then he's knocked off before he can do anything to save Kino. And that's how it ends. It is tragic and perfect, and I love it. I think it's an incredible bit of storytelling.
Yeah, oh my god, the line delivery of "I can't swim" is so fucking good. And again, right, like in comparison to the speech that Karn gives, this is like Kino needs a little bit of encouragement, but he gets in there, right? And again, the difference between the rebellion that Luthen is trying to build and this like organic revolt of like, you know, truly like of the people, by the people, for the people, is that, you know, he does say like, if you see somebody slow or confused, get them moving and get them out. Like, we are going to get out of here. We are going to do this. We are not going to let them like lord this over us anymore. And then you contrast that with Luthen willingly sending one of his operatives to die because the ISP found out about his plan, and being like, well, rebellion requires like sacrifice. You really start to see like the nuances of revolution of like, where can you build community? Where does it become naive to do so? Like, where are you risking more than you gain by valuing people for their humanity? Like, when do both sides have to play a little dirty? It's gross, right? It makes you feel icky. It's not good.
No.
But it's such a compelling story. Like, it's Andor is like exquisitely written, really. Like super, super huge kudos. But so, one way out, they bust out of prison, and we cut back to Ferrix, where the Imperial pressure is increasing. Bix gets captured and tortured, in a very interesting way.
Yeah, the torture is like really cool in a really fucked up sort of way. Do you remember specifically how it is?
I missed like exactly what it was, but isn't it like the choir of dying children of some sort of people?
Right. The Empire was clearing out a planet, and they found a sapient species that like whenever they scream, they produce like a psychically like terrifying noise. And they specifically got the voices of the children they murdered of this species and like remixed it in Audacity to make it extra torturable. And they put it in like a cool little VR headset. And they put it's not a VR headset, it's audio only. But they make you listen to that until it ruins you. And it's a really cool way to do it. It's a really, you know, like, I don't know. I don't like describing any sort of torture as cool, but like if you're gonna do like a torture sequence with an evil empire, like this is a very interesting way to do it. And also, you know, to be fair, the United States tortures people using sound also, so like it's not
right.
It's not unheard of.
Yeah. No, the thing too about these sequences is that we start to see Dedra like her kind of like enjoyment of this process come out too. Like Bix literally, like she's just like, hey Bix, you should tell me everything. And Bix is like, you're not gonna believe me anyway. And Jedra's like, no, you're right, I won't. And then in general, the sound editing in this movie, I watched it like a movie, like a sitting and a half. In this show, there's a really cool, my king, one of my favorite characters, the anvil guy on Ferrix. There's just like a man in a clock tower who bangs an anvil to signal to start the end of the day. That's a really cool, like, auditory piece of world building. And then when Karn and his team show up, everyone's like rattling on any sort of metal they can find. So the whole city is kind of like, there's not an alarm, but like there's a racket, right? And so everybody knows that when this like type of noise is happening, like something's going on. And you hear it a couple of times. It's like cacophony. The cool thing about this, again, torture is not cool, but the technically cool thing about this scene is that when he puts the headset on, it's the monster that you don't see or you don't hear, because you don't hear anything as the audience for a bit. When the headset's on, there's silence, and then Bix just starts screaming.
Yeah.
So I thought, if you can't show a monster horrifying enough, you just don't show it, and you show the reaction. So it worked really well. This scene was very well executed, I think. So Bix is captured. Back on Coruscant, Mon's banker friend, who is also a neo-lib, informs her that she's got nearly 500,000 credits unaccounted for in the wake of an Imperial inspection. And the only way to stop this is like a very specific banker from a very specific city who can do some very specific things. And Mon is like, okay, you're leading to a name. Just tell me who it is. I don't like the way you're dragging this out. And her friend is basically like, it's this guy you hate, whose name does not really matter.
Davo Skulden is his name. He's like a mobster, basically.
Yeah. And Mon is like, no. And he's like, hear him out, though, or you're fucked. So she hears him out, and she's like, okay, what's your cost? Interest, like, what do you want? And he's like, I don't want money. And she's like, I don't want to owe you a favor, though. And he's like, well, that's too bad, because I want you to owe me a favor. And what he wants is to introduce their teenage children, because once again, in their custom of their people, they get married very young. Mon immediately is like, no, fuck that. Vel, when she hears about it, is like, no, fuck that. Both of these women are not into this. And
even Perrin is like not into this, right? Which I think is so interesting, because Perrin sucks too. And when Mon and it's not Clea, it's Vel are talking about this, and then she's like, is this Perrin's idea? And she's like, actually no, he's very open-minded about the subject. Like he doesn't think of these conservative, traditional things, which makes sense because Mon and Perrin's marriage sucks ass. So it's like, obviously they wouldn't want that for their daughter, but their daughter wants it. And like, that's how this ends, right? This ends with the terrible little boy getting introduced to Leyla, and like, that's, it is such a funny, interesting thing, because this is another insight from a more civilized age, but like, Leyla thinks that she has brought this about because she, has been doing all of her great, like, Tradcath shit. Like, she thinks like, okay, I trusted in the knot and the binding and whatever dumb bullshit Chandrillans believe. But, she thinks this is her win, that she has been able to, get her parents to see that she's an adult and able to make these choices from herself. Where like, it's actually not that at all. It's actually Mom was funding a terrorist organization and needed some cover. But this is how you get your weird, shitty marriage.
And it puts Mon in such a shitty place, because she doesn't want this for her daughter, but her daughter wants it. But and Mon is a technically good parent with a shitty daughter and a shitty husband.
Right, she's in an impossible situation.
She's doing all the right things on paper. She's just an absent parent she's not really emotionally there for her daughter. Not because she doesn't want to be, but because there's just like no time to be. She's a senator. And her dad is like, while she's giving her apple slices, her dad is sneaking her goldfish under the fucking table, right?
Right.
And so there's a lot of like multiple interactions where Leyla is just like, Dad lets me do whatever I want. Like,
right.
Vel brings her that dress,
right.
And Mon is like, I don't care if you wear it, but like,
your
dad might have a problem with it. And she says, Dad lets me do whatever I want. And it's like, the two of them team up against Mon all the time, and it sucks to watch.
It's grim, yeah. It's brutal.
But, when you think about, like, okay, a parent-child relationship, a parent, especially one who doesn't want their kid to make the same mistakes that they did, or to be forced into the same situations that they were forced into, ideally, Mon would have been, like, absolutely not. You are not getting married. Like, we are not putting you, like, you cannot do this Tradcath bullshit. It is toxic. It is bad. You will thank me later. But because Leyla already hates her and will already do whatever the fuck she wants, she's gonna indulge in it more, right? So she's truly, like, in an impossible situation, and it just so works out for her that her daughter ruining her own life is the cover she needs for her missing 500,000 credits.
Yeah, it's so grim because, like, ultimately Mon is like, I'm a good person. I want to be a good person so bad. I am doing this for the sake of everybody else in the galaxy. But still, like, she is offering her daughter up in a weird, terrible way, and like, it's so brutal and sad, and like, that's good storytelling. That's putting your characters in a really tough spot and watching them squirm. That's good shit.
It's fucking grim, dude. So where are we at now? Mon Mothma, her issues with her money at least have been resolved, right? So her daughter's going. So that's fine. Luthen is still trying to find and kill Cassian. The ISB is still trying to capture Cassian and capture Axis, who is Luthen. And Cassian himself has just freed himself from prison, and with one other inmate is on the run. The thing that is going to converge all of them back on Ferrix, back under the stone and sky, is the fact that Marva dies. She dies of illness. She knows it's going to happen. She's old and weak, and she passes. And, whew, man, that little android BMO is so sad. Anytime pathetic, sad little BMO's on screen, I cried. I was like, this is too much. It's just that old droid has been through so much.
Yeah, poor boy.
Poor BMO. But genuinely, like, he makes Brasso stay overnight with him in that empty apartment, and that broke my heart. That was so much. But so Cassian calls home, and Brasso's other shitty friend, with the biggest dipshit mouth on the planet, tells Cassian, hey, your mom is dead. Like, the funeral is coming. The custom is 2 days. So this is what's going to bring Cassian back onto Ferrix. And during this funeral, there's a hollow recording of Marva saying goodbye, because she's like a prominent member of the community. And Marva basically says, fuck the Empire, ACAB, fight until you die.
I wrote the whole speech out when I was rewatching because I got so hype. But basically, it ends with, like, you know, it's easy for the dead to tell you to fight, and maybe it's true, maybe it's useless. Perhaps it's too late, but I'll tell you this. If I could do it again, I would wake up early and be fighting these bastards from the start. It's so good. And just like, that's the thing that kicks off, like, this big fight between the cops that are there to ostensibly, you know, provide security for this big funeral, but also to capture Andor, and this big funeral, which consists of, like, a full marching band.
Rules.
There's just this big riot that breaks out. It's awesome.
And this riot gives Cassian enough cover to go get Bix. His team gets on a ship. He sends them away. Cassian himself goes to find Luthen. And Luthen's like, what the fuck? And Cassian's like, you're trying to kill me, right? And Luthen's like, I mean, yeah. And Cassian's like, okay, kill me or take me in. And that's kind of like the open question that their story leaves off on. And then our girl boss, Dedra.
Yes, I'm interested to see what you thought about how Dedra ended up.
I had to rewatch it a couple of times to really process what was going on. So, Dedra, in her girl bossery, has met Karn and let him read the report of, like, his downfall. And from that moment on, Karn started, like, stalking her. He basically told her, I had no reason to live until you showed up, and now, like, when I see you, I see, like, purpose, basically. Like, I have a reason to go on.
Normal stuff.
Normal behavior. She tells him, fuck off, creep. Never come here again. I will arrest you. Fuck your whole shit. I am an attendant for the ISB. He does not listen to her. Shows up on Ferrix, pulls her out of danger, and she has, like, a panic attack in front of him. She says, I should thank you. And he says, you don't have to. And I hate it.
Oh, you don't like this?
No, it made me... Well, it's good storytelling. Maybe uncomfortable though.
Yes, exactly. Right. It is like the toxic, like, two worst people you know are now in a weird, fucked up relationship. Maybe, like, it's so sick to see how horny he is in that moment. Just like, awful.
It's the maybe. It's the ambiguity that's like really gross, right? Mm-hmm. It's his like weird worship of her and her like truly like trauma bonding, right? Like her truly never having felt that level of fear before, and then like being rescued by this guy she like aligns with but hates. Delicious. I hated it. I hated every moment of it.
Exactly. I have to see more. I have to see. There's no the More Civilized podcast really badly wants her to meet Edie, and like the dinner between Daedra and Edie would be just like incredible.
Edie is so good. Oh my god, I will never forget when Karin's fucking buddy calls him and he's like, Andor's mom's dead. Edie's just like, the mysteries of your triumphs have been solved. I can sleep easy now. And then like flourishes her nightcoat and goes.
Yeah, she's like, this is what you did without me. You played cop, you fucking loser. I got you a cool job at the Bureau of Standards, idiot. Never forget that.
I'm pissed we never got to meet his uncle.
Yeah, I want Uncle Harlow in season 2. We gotta have. There's only 2 seasons of Andor, is the thing. There's only one more season scheduled, which like is a tragedy. But 2024, I think that'll be the day. Gosh.
Well, you can't. Listen, you can't have more than 2 seasons. There's a movie.
Yeah.
Where bad things happen.
You don't know that. You don't know what happened.
You're right, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, no. The Rogue One is just about the Death Star. You know, what could happen, what bad could happen at the Death Star.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not a suicide mission. I'm sure no one dies.
No, it's really, I'm sure there's a shot at the end of Rogue One with Cassian, and he's old, and he's, retired, and he's hanging out with Kino, and it's all great, and nothing bad happens.
I'm sure Diego Luna's fine ass doesn't die.
No.
Hey, I hope it's in his contract that he got a fat stack of bennies for showing his feet in 4K like 4 times during the prison sequence.
Did he?
Yeah, do you not remember? There were like 5 close-ups on his feet during the
prison. I guess I wasn't paying super close attention to his feet.
I am just a believer in no free feet.
Yeah, no.
Don't put your feet up for free.
That should be something that your agent negotiates. Like, hey, if you're gonna show bare feet, you gotta add another 10%.
Yeah, I would charge per frame of foot exposure.
Great, good. Yeah, no, that's very fun. But yeah, I mean that's kind of how that's everything, right? We've hit every major arc.
Yeah, no, that's Andor. That's Andor for real.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, it's really good. It's, The Mandalorian is allegedly coming in March, so that'll be a new season of The Mandalorian, which is like the most successful Star Wars show since like Clone Wars. So like, for me as like a lifelong Star Wars fan, I'm looking forward to that. But like, having just come off Andor and just like I am like genuinely like a little bit bummed out that there's not more, and I know that that's the trap. That's how they get you. That's how they get you to get like 8 seasons of nothing. But like, yeah, no, I am just really I'm just really glad that they pulled this off, and also desperate to see more Star Wars shit do more interesting like examinations of the world that they live in, and not just be like, and this is the Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, let's tell you the history of it, you care about that, right? Like
there was not a lightsaber on screen once. The closest you got is during the Aldani arc. Cassian had like a piece of a Kyber crystal that he was supposed to sell.
Right.
Which also I want to give the Aldani arc a flower that I forgot to give it in real time. He needs an alias when he's working with Vel and all of them, and he calls himself
Clem.
Oh my god, Clem. Thank you. He calls himself Clem, and you don't find out for like 4 episodes that was his dad's name.
Yep.
It's brutal. Really good. It's
He also
brutal.
has the thing is that he gets another alias in a little bit after that, and the alias is Keith Gurga, which is extremely funny.
I mean, like, he buys in. He never tells anyone his name is Cassie.
Everyone on Aldani, or everybody on the Rakina 5 thinks his name is Keith Gurga, which is very funny.
Incredible. You had a pitch for us, for our marketing minute.
And like thinking about Andor and the ways in which that it is a successful Star Wars spinoff. My pitch to you is like, what would you do? What spinoff in the Star Wars universe would you do that is, that gets deeper like Andor does into its world and makes a more interesting take on Star Wars? And mine, I see that you've blacked out yours. So I'm going to say mine real quick, which is like, I just want to like do the seedy underbelly of the Mos Eisley pod racing circuit and like talk about all the weird gangs and all the weird politics that goes on around the pod racing, and like, what's Sebulba up to? Huh? What did he do? And who are all the fucking weird perverts that he hangs out with? Like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I would fuck with that. I would watch the 4 solid seasons of that. I love one of my favorite animes that I'm kind of bummed about is The Great Pretender. I loved season 1. Season 2 does not exist to me. Season 1 is just like vignettes of heists, and then season 2 they got a little carried away and they were like, what a tragic backstory. No, heists. Stop. I liked the vignettes. So. I have to caveat real quick, because the question you posed in the outline, the thing you wrote, and the thing I responded to, was how would we make a Star Wars spin-off interesting? There is nothing in here at all about adding depth. So I want to caveat. Okay. Sure. I want to caveat what I'm about to say and do with that.
All right.
She is a serious, career-driven droid mechanic working her way up the corporate ladder, and she is the plucky daughter of a mayor carrying the whole town on her big, beefy, capable shoulders. This Christmas, Aegis Slothpar gets sent on an emergency placement to the Outer Rim, but Jalili Buslim... These are all Star Wars name generator names. Don't look at me. Has other plans for this Grinch. It's like the Grinch, but it's in space. Star Wars, Don't Go Smelting My Heart will be on Disney Plus this holiday season.
I would kill Bob Iger in a cage match to get this. I will do whatever it takes to get a Hallmark-style Disney Star Wars Christmas romance movie. Holy shit, that would fuck so bad.
Okay, I also want to shout out Marty, because I did text them and I was like, Marty, quick, I need a name for my Hallmark Star Wars like picture. It's the backdrop of Star Wars, but it is like generic self-insert AO3 fanfic of like a holiday rom-com. Marty sent me not only a suggestion for the like race of the protagonists. Instead of human, they would be like that veiled companion. Okay, I forget what they're called, but there's a race that never shows their face, and like they're like veiled companions. They suggested it's like a Princess and the Switch scenario, and they never see each other's faces, and that's how they get away with falling in love, even though they're supposed to look exactly alike. Because I was like, are you pitching me some sort of like weird Narcissus self-cess shit? And that's how they just... I got lore, I got connection, I got so much more than what I asked for, but you're still getting Don't Go Smelting My Heart, because I was not trying to be that smart about it. All of my friends are smarter than me, unfortunately. I'm just a jock. Sorry.
All of your friends are nerdier than you and know more about fictional universe's history than you, which is not a good thing on your friend's part. Shout outs to Marty, though, for the incredible world building connections.
That's true. You did clock a Kingdom Hearts screenshot to incredible accuracy the other day.
I'm not proud of that. Yeah.
I am. I thought it was cool. So Don't Go Smelting My Heart is a Star Wars story is my pitch.
Kathleen Kennedy, 775-573-8882. You have our number. Do you know how much fucking money a Star Wars rom-com would make? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now?
Actually, I'm not even joking. Give me a couple of years, if I work really, really hard and work my way up the ladder, let me do a Star Wars holiday dating sim. It's going to be Hallmark. It's going to be delicious. It'll sell 1 billion copies.
Oh my God. Hades, but Star Wars. Yeah, like, holy shit. That's it. That's the pitch. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Hades roguelite with romance. Come on. Call 775-573-8888.
Kathleen, you know how to reach us. Holy shit.
We've got to stop giving away these $1 billion idas for free.
Yeah, when we're not trying to, desperately give Disney a gajillion dollars that they, for some reason, refuse to take. It's money lying right there on the Durasteel table.
Not the Durasteel.
Where can we be found on the internet?
You can find me at LEYLSCS on Twitter and Tumblr. I am currently working on my webcomic and working on my full-time job. What about you?
I'm at AaronSXL on Twitter, and I'm at aavoigt.com for basically everything else. I do tabletop RPG reviews. I talk about writing. I sometimes talk about health policy when I'm really sad. That's where you can find all our shit.
Not when you're sad.
I never bring up health policy for fun reasons. Not in the U.S.
You can find me one other place. If you like my takes for some reason and you want more of them, don't know why I would, but you could. I have a new little Tumblr blog where I track things I enjoy, just generally speaking. It's just chill vibes. If you want recommendations, it's Leyls Likes, LEYLS likes.tumblr.com. Feel free to follow me there. It's just mini reviews of things I enjoy.
Yes, that'll be great. Can't wait to see what you put on that. Our theme song is Obsolete by Keshko from the album Filmmakers Reference Kit Volume 2. You can find more of their music at keshko.bandcamp.com. Leyla, what is that thing we always say at the end of Mortified?
No weapons, no comms, no credits, no nonsense.
Ain't that the truth? We'll see you all next week.